Let's start with the functional anatomy of GIT. Gastrointestinal tract begin with the mouth and end with the anus. From the mouth, the chewed food mixed with saliva passes into the pharynx. Salivary amylase helps in partial digestion of complex sugar polysaccharide like starch or glycogen into di or trisaccharide, maltose or maltose, which will be converted by other enzyme to glucose, which in turn is continuous with the esophagus, which is 25 cm long, fibromuscular tube lined with mucous membrane. The contraction and expansion movement of its wall, called peristaltic movement, cause the food to pass into the stomach. Stomach is a bag-like structure that stores and grinds food and mixes food with gastric juice. HCl and pepsin secreted in stomach help in partial digestion of proteins, and stomach convert food into chymes. Chymes from the stomach enter the intestine through pyloric sphincter by controlled gastric emptying. This pink color structure is small intestine. Small intestine is a 9-feet tube that extends from the pyloric sphincter to the ileocecal wall. It consists of 3 parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Small intestine, the first part of this begins the duodenum, which is about 25 cm long and a shape like letter C. The remain of small intestine consists of jejunum, which is about 2.5 meter long, and ileum, which is about 3.5 meter long. Biliary and pancreatic secretion are poor into duodenum. Intestinal glands secrete succus entericus. Pancreatic and intestinal secretion are rich in various enzymes that cause digestion of carbohydrates, protein and fats. Absorption of most nutrients take places in jejunum and ileum. The small intestinal motility propel food into large intestine through ileocecal sphincter, which though wider than the small intestine is much shorter, being in total 1.5 to 1.8 meter long. Large intestine absorb water and electrolyte and temporarily store the concentrated and undigested material, which then enter the rectum. The large intestine is divided into 9 parts, starting with the cecum, into which the ileum open. The opening guarded by the ileocecal valve, which allow on-flow but prevent backflow of the content of intestine. Then there is the vermiform appendix, which is about 7.5 cm length and terminate in blind end. Next, there is ascending colon, which passes up along the right side of the abdomen to bend sharply at the right hepatic flexor and the descending colon. This goes to the down left side of the abdomen to the sigmoid colon and the rectum, which is 12.5 centimeter to 15 centimeter long. Rectum is the final segment of large intestine, stores fecal matter and contract when distended. Terminal part of large intestine, which guarded by two sphincter muscle, is known as anus. Defecation reflex relaxes the anal sphincter and expels feces from rectum to outside through the anal canal. Liver, gallbladder and pancreas are accessory organ in gastrointestinal system. Now go through a structural characteristic of gastrointestinal wall. Different part of GIT are specialized for different function in the process of digestion and absorption. But the basic arrangement of the whole GIT from the posterior pharynx to the rectum are same. The gastrointestinal wall has following layers from the outside to the inwards. The serous layer or serosa, the muscular layer consisting of two. Outer layer is the longitudinal smooth muscle layer and inner layer is the circular smooth muscle layer. The submucous layer or submucosa and the mucous layer or mucosa. Mucous layer are divided into three: mucous membrane, lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. The serous layer or serosa is the outermost layer consisting of a layer of connective tissue, and this layer helps in the attachment of gut to the surrounding structure. The muscle layer is formed by smooth muscle fiber, and contraction of longitudinal muscle layer cause a decrease in length of that segment, and contraction of circular layer decrease in diameter of the lumen of that segment of GIT. Circular smooth muscle layer is thicker at the sphincter. In between the circular and longitudinal muscle layer present vast network of nerve fibers known as mesenteric or Auerbach plexus. The circular and longitudinal muscle layer help in both mixing and propulsion of food present in GIT. The submucous layer or submucosa is made up of loose connective tissue present inside the muscle layer and outside of mucous layer, which contain blood vessel, lymphatic and vast network of nerve cell and nerve fiber known as Meissner plexus or submucosal plexus. The mucous layer or mucosa is the innermost layer, consists of epithelium, lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. This layer is lined by epithelium cell which vary in type from simple squamous to long columnar depending upon the part of GIT. Lamina propria is made up of loose connective tissue rich in lymphocyte which have small blood vessel, lymphatics, glands and nerve fibers. Muscularis mucosa is made up of two thin layer of smooth muscle fibers. In that, contraction cause changes in surface area for secretion and absorption. Receptor activation alter digestive activity through neural and hormonal pathway. The digestive tract wall contains three types of sensory receptor that respond to local change in digestive tract. Chemoreceptor, sensitive to chemical component within the lumen. Mechanoreceptor, Mechanoreceptor is a pressure receptor sensitive to a stretch or tension within the wall. And osmoreceptor. Osmoreceptor sensitive to the osmolarity of luminal content. A stimulation of these receptors elicit neural reflex or secretion of hormones, both of which alter the activity level in the digestive system's effector cell. These effector cell include smooth muscle cell for the modifying motility, exocrine gland cell for controlling secretion of digestive juice, and endocrine gland cell for varying secretion of GI hormones. Receptor activation may bring about two types of neural reflex: short neural reflex and long reflex. A short reflex takes place when all elements of the reflex are located within the wall of the digestive tract itself. That is, when the intrinsic nerve network influence local motility or secretion in response to a specific local stimulation. That is, when the intrinsic nerve network influence local motility or secretion in response to specific local stimulation. Extrinsic autonomic nervous activity can be superimposed on the local control to modify smooth muscle and glandular response, either to correlate activity between different regions of the digestive system or to modify digestive system activity in response to external influences. Because the autonomic reflex involves a long pathway between the central nervous system and digestive nervous system. They are known as long reflex. In addition to sensory receptors within the digestive tract wall that monitor luminal content and wall tension, the plasma membrane of digestive system's effector cell have receptor protein that bind with and responds to GI hormone, neurotransmitter and local chemical mediators. Now talk about innervation of gastrointestinal tract. The gastrointestinal tract is regulated by autonomic nervous system which has an intrinsic and extrinsic component. These two network systems, intrinsic and extrinsic, are present in GIT for innervation. The intrinsic component is called the enteric nervous system, also known as little brain or second brain, because it can operate independently. Is further divided into myenteric and Meissner plexus. Myenteric plexus is also known as Auerbach plexus and Meissner plexus is also known as submucosal plexus. Myenteric plexus are located between the inner and outer layer of muscularis externa, while Meissner plexus are located in the submucosa. Myenteric plexus are mainly motor in function, while Meissner plexus are mainly sensory in function. So, myenteric plexus control tone, intensity, rate and velocity of conduction rhythm. Thus, it is concerned with peristalsis movement of the GIT. And Meissner plexus are control secretion and endocrine function of GIT. The intrinsic or extrinsic nervous system is capable of operating independently but does rely on innervation from the vagus nerve and prevertebral ganglia. The mesenteric and Meissner plexus are interconnected with each other and are under the control of sympathetic and parasympathetic component of extrinsic nervous system. The dorsomotor nucleus and nucleus ambiguous located in the medullary region of the brain stem contain cell bodies of neuron whose process travel in the vagus nerve. The parasympathetic supply to the GIT is mainly through the vagus nerve and innervate the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, pancreas and large intestine, up to the splenic flexure. The remaining part of GIT receive parasympathetic fiber through pelvic nerve. Parasympathetic nerve are cholinergic and release acetylcholine. The function of parasympathetic nerves are to stimulate smooth muscle contraction and glandular secretions. Sympathetic nerve supply arise from E5 to L2 segment of spinal cord. Sympathetic nerve are adrenergic and release epinephrine. Epinephrine hyperpolarize the smooth muscle and relaxation occur in GI tract. Let's talk about blood supply of GI tract. The following branches of aorta supply blood to the GIT: superior and inferior mesenteric artery, ileocecal artery, left colic artery, sigmoid artery, appendicular artery, ileal artery, and rectal artery provide blood supply to the gastrointestinal tract. Additionally, common hepatic artery supply to the liver and splenic artery supply to the stomach. The upper part of the stomach is supplied by esophageal branches of left gastric artery. The portal vein is the main vessel of the portal venous system, which drain the blood from GIT, gallbladder, pancreas, and spleen to the liver. Now let's talk about the functions of GIT. The main function of GIT is utilization of consumed food by the following process: ingestion, digestion, absorption, and egestion. The other is immunological function of GIT. Ingestion involves placing the food into the mouth, moistening in mouth, and breakdown into smaller pieces, which is known as mastication. Mixing the food with salivary secretion and swallowing the food, which is known as deglution. Digestion helps for broken down and degradation of food into simpler substance such as glucose, amino acid, and fatty acid. Absorption: the digested food, vitamin, minerals, and fluid are exposed to the epithelial surface of the small intestine, from where it is transferred into the circulating blood. Egestion: the remnant of undigested food, along with various secretion and slug of gut epithelia, passes into the rectum. The rectum shortens as it expels material into the anus and excreted through the anus at periodic interval, which is known as defecation. Now, immunological function of GIT. GIT is also equipped with defense mechanism. The mucosal epithelium overlying the Peyer's patches in small intestine has a specialized microfold cell, M cell, for absorption of antigen substance. Peyer's patches are a small grouping of lymphoid follicles in small intestine having a collection of T and B lymphocytes. In lamina propria of small intestine, large number of lymphocyte and plasma cell are present. The antigen absorbed by M cell get processed in these lymphocytes and get converted into lymphoblast that ultimately form plasma cells. The plasma cells secrete IgA antibodies which provide immunity against infested antigen. IgA regulate the composition and function of gut microbiota. Viruses produce toxins and IgA inactivate the viruses as well as neutralize the toxin. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel.